سلام خوش اومدید به یکی دیگه از ویدیوهای این سری چنل آفساید. همونطور که احتمالا خیلیاتون میدونید داریم یه مجموعه ویدیوهایی رو ریلیز میکنیم که هر روز میان. این نه ویدیو یکی مونده به آخره یا سومی چهارمی، حالا مشخص نیست. داریم حالا اتفاقات تابستون، جهانی، نقل و انتقالات رو تا حدی بررسی میکنیم. امیدوارم که تا اینجا از حالا ویدیوهای قبلی، ویدیوهایی که حالا داره بعداً میاد، لذت برده باشید. این ویدیو در مورد ترکیه است، تیمی که ادعاش 100 بود و عملکردش 0. به همین راحتی، یه چیز دیگه برای گفتن نه. تیمی که گفت من میخوام برم جهانی قهرمان بشم و از گروهش هم نتونست صعود بکنه. بدون هیچ معطلی بریم ببینیم که ترکیه چی برامون داره.
From celebrating in the streets of Ankara to losing to the Australians.
Australia has totally frustrated Turkey. Turkey has tried some shots from distance. They tried to combine with 1-2s. Tried so many different things. Some clip crosses, some low crosses. They've been close, but when we look at it, you give credit to Australia for an incredible game plan and big efforts by so many players.
We saw that Turkey have dominated in terms of possession in this match, but Bob, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Possession doesn't win games by itself. And
the only number that matters is the one at the top, 2-0.
From being happy to be back at the World Cup after 24 years to losing to 10-man Paraguay.
2 games done, 2 losses for Turkey, and they're getting ready to go all the way back home. Have they been the biggest deception of this World Cup?
Without question. And listen, this has changed the dynamic of this group too, because to your point, once Turkey qualifies out to the playoffs, you're thinking them and the US are favourites, and you could actually see an upset. Both of them facing off in the third game, and kind of drawing in that respect. So you just wondered, and nothing could have played out more differently than it has right now.
From having some of the most talented youngsters in the world to being eliminated from the World Cup after match day 2.
و یه سری از overrated ترین بازیکن‌های این دوره جام جهانی که ادعاشون خیلی بازم میگم زیاد بود ولی در واقعیت چی نبودن.
What the hell in the world to being eliminated from the World Cup after match day 2. What the hell happened with Turkey? I once again fell for the dark horse gimmick around Turkey. I looked at the team with Arda Güler, Kenan Yildiz, Çalhanoğlu, and I thought, okay, they can do some damage.
اسمش کنانه؟ بهم یه کنانی زادگان. کنان چه اسمی ده؟
Their group didn't seem that bad, especially since even third place teams can still go to the next round. But what we watched might have been one of the most miserable campaigns in World Cup history. On the right is what Turkey wanted.
بنده خدا چی رو دارین این کار میکنین؟ کباب ترکیه؟ اوکی این خوب بود.
Miserable campaigns in World Cup history. On the right is what Turkey wanted. On the left is what they got. They lost in the same way that I lose matches in FIFA and end up breaking my controller. Football has a funny way of getting your hopes up and then completely pulling the rug from under you. For more than 2 decades, Turkish football fans had lived off the memories of that iconic 2002 team that shocked the world and finished 3rd at the World Cup. An entire generation grew up hearing stories about the legends from that tournament. So when Vincenzo Montella finally guided this talented new generation back to the World Cup, the excitement was through the roof. The squad on paper had everything. Arda Güler was being tipped as one of the future stars of world football. Kenan Yildiz was coming off a breakout season. Hakan Çalhanoğlu was one of the most experienced and respected midfielders in Europe. For the first time in years, Turkish fans were dreaming about a deep tournament run. Instead, the World Cup turned into an absolute nightmare. 2 games, 2 losses, 0 points. First came a disappointing 2-0 loss to Australia. Then things somehow got even worse with a shocking 1-0 loss against a Paraguay side that spent much of the match down to 10 men. Just like that, one of the tournament's most exciting dark horses ended up being eliminated from the tournament. After 2 games, they had 0 goals, yet had 62 shots. Despite taking so many shots, they generated only 3.6 expected goals.
62 تا شوت در چارچوب یعنی نه دیگه 62 کلا شوت زده. مشخص چند تاش تو چارچوب بوده. XG 3.6 داشتن، XG پر شوتشون 600 بوده، یعنی 62 تا شوت تا همتی رندوم از هر جای زمین ول بدی یکیش گل میشه قاعدتا. این دوستان زحمت کشیدن و همون یه نم نتونستن. البته بازی آخر 3-2 آمریکا رو بردن، ولی چه فایده دیگه، نه آمریکا بازی کرد نه البته اینا اومدن فقط از آبرو و حیثیت فوتبالشون دفاع بکنن، ولی آمریکا چون صعودش مال تیم اول قطعی بود باش فشار نیاورد.
The biggest problem was their shot selection. More than half of their attempts had come from outside the box, with 29 shots launched from 24 yards or more. At some point, it started to look less like a game plan and more like desperation. I would hate to be a fan behind the net when Turkey are attacking. Güler tried to make things happen. Many times he was let down by his teammates forgetting how to finish. But even he ended up caught in the shooting frenzy, taking...
آقا استرالیا خیلی زیرزیرکی اتوبوس خوبی میچینه خدا وکیلی. این بازیشون رو ببینید و بازی بعدشون رو در چیدن اتوبوس تبحر خوبی دارن. اینا برن دوله بالاتر فکر کنم آره سمت آرژانتینن، یعنی احتمالا مصر رو ببرن و برن سمت آرژانتین. بازیشون با آرژانتین مثل 4 سال قبل نزدیک میشه قطعاً، چون نمیذاره آرژانتین زیاد به سمت دروازه‌شون حمله کنه. استرالیا کردیت بازیشو بهش میدم خدا که استرالیا از اون چیزی که فکر میکنه خیلی بالاتر بود.
11 shots that either flew wide, got blocked, or ended up harmlessly in the crowd. He wasn't alone either. Kenan Yildiz had 12 shots, Hakan Çalhanoğlu had 11, and pretty much everyone seemed determined to have a crack at goal. That first game against Australia was probably so frustrating to watch as a Turkey fan. I mean, I was a neutral, and even I was getting annoyed with how many shots were being blocked and how many opportunities were not being created despite how much possession the Turks had. They conceded 2 chances and both turned into goals. First one was İrfan Kunda just destroying the Turkish back line. Too much pace and skill, scoring a lovely counter goal. Then the second goal came from the Australians, teaching the Turks how to hit the target from a long shot. All game Turkey had the ball, they had more shots, but they just could not break down the wall in front of them. Under Vincenzo Montella, Turkey tried to move away from the old school counter-attacking style that
البته مونتلا با کردیت کارشو دادا، یعنی درست تیم خوبی داره ترکیه، ولی شاید با مربی دیگه نمیتونست این صعودو بکنه. به نظرم میتونن دنبال مربی بهتری باشن، ولی اگر قرار گزینه پایینتر از مونتلا بیارن به نظرم مثلا عوضش نکنن اگه اشتباه، ولی اگر خرج بیشتری بکنن و مربی بهتر بیارن نتیجه بهتری میده.
Define many of their previous teams. During qualifying, they wanted to dominate the ball, control games, and play an attractive modern brand of football. The problem is that the World Cup is a completely different challenge. Just like the dark web segment of my website, pettalksports.com. There's a lot of research that doesn't make it into these videos, and I want to share it with you guys. Just go to the website, become a member. You'll even get some free jerseys every few months. Check it out in the link in the description. Montella's go-to 4-2-3-1 looks good when everything is clicking. It's the same system that he used at the 2 playoff matches, where Turkey beat both Romania and Kosovo. At the base of the midfield was Çalhanoğlu, sitting deep and dictating the play. Ahead of him were creative talents like Arda Güler and Kenan Yildiz. On the flanks, fullbacks like Kadioglu were expected to push forward and provide the width. But against Australia, none of it clicked. The problem wasn't so much the system, but rather his refusal to change anything when the opponents had figured it out. The Socceroos had clearly done their homework. Rather than chasing the ball all over the pitch, they sat in a disciplined mid-block and focused on cutting off the connections between Çalhanoğlu and Turkey's creative players. Every time Hakan dropped deep to receive the ball from the center backs, Australia's midfield shifted across to block the passing lanes into Arda Güler and Kenan Yildiz. Without those vertical passes through the middle, Turkey's attack became so predictable. Instead of moving forward quickly, they spent long stretches just passing sideways and recycling possession. So they had plenty of the ball, but offered very little threat. The football that looked so fluid during qualifying became slow and easy to defend against. Australia were happy to let Turkey keep possession in harmless areas, waiting patiently for mistakes. And when those mistakes came, they attacked quickly and directly. The result was a comfortable 2-0 win for the Socceroos, and the first warning sign that Turkey's possession-heavy approach might not hold up well against well-organized World Cup opposition. That second game was probably even worse because the same things happened, this time against a 10-man Paraguay. It was a tactical nightmare. In fact, it might go down as one of the best examples of how to not break down a defensive team. Things started badly almost immediately. Just 2 minutes into the match, Paraguay got an early 1-0 lead. Suddenly, Turkey were chasing the game. But then came what should have been the turning point. Right before halftime, Miguel Almiron was shown a straight red card. Turkey now had an entire second half against 10 men. Most teams would fancy their chances. Turkey somehow got even worse.
بازی ایران بلژیک رو ندیده حتما.
Most teams would fancy their chances. Turkey somehow got even worse. The numbers are almost hard to believe. Turkey
حتی کردیتو بدیم اونجا ایران چند حمله کرد. اینو فکر نکنم. اونجا حمله های ایران افیشنت تر بود تا موثرتر بود تا کاری که اینا کردن.
finished with 78% possession.
دو 17 XG چی نزدن؟ آفرین خدا وکیلی. یعنی برای اینکه جونشون هم نجات بدن نمیتونن شلیک بکنن فکر کنم کلا هیچ صفر. بازی آخر 3 تا گل زدن. البته اینم جالبه.
And spent most of the game camped in Paraguay's half. I mean, the Paraguayans barely touched the ball after the break. Yet somehow, Turkey never found a way through. Instead of panicking, the Paraguay manager Gustavo Alfaro immediately dropped his team into an ultra-compact low block. Every player sat behind the ball, every passing lane was crowded, every dangerous space disappeared. And Turkey had absolutely no answer. The game exposed a huge flaw in Montella's setup. Turkey had plenty of creative players, but they didn't really have a focal point in the box. Arda Güler wanted the ball at his feet outside the area. Kenan Yildiz preferred drifting inside from wide positions. Aktürk Koglu wanted to attack open space behind the defense. What's the problem? There was no open space. Paraguay were sitting right on top of their own penalty area. With no physical striker occupying the center backs like Gustavo Gomez and Omar Alderete, Turkey had nobody stretching the defense or creating any sort of chaos inside the box. The attack became incredibly predictable. The ball moved, but Paraguay never did. And whenever Turkey crossed the ball into the box, the outcome was usually the same.
تو این حالت معمولا 2 تا کار میشه کرد. شوت پشت محوطه که ترکیه امتحان کرد و به جایی نرسید، یا اینکه خب بازیکن‌ها تو باکس زیادتر بکن. یعنی مثلا به جای 2 تا 3 تا بکن، 4 تا بکن که بالاخره یکی سانت داره میکنه، یکی بالاخره برای اون یکی میسابونه یا مثلا یه موقعیت ایجاد میشه. معمولا این 2 تا راهکار منطقی ترین راهه. یعنی مثلا تو بالناکن دارن میدن عقب، بدن گوشه، 2-3 نفر برن تو باکس اضافه بشن. حالا ولی اینا شوت زدن انتخاب کردن که خب نتیجه هم نگرفتن.
A Paraguayan defender headed it away and everyone reset. We saw the same thing against Australia. There was no big physical striker to battle the gigantic center backs that Australia had. Seriously, the size difference between these guys, it was like men versus boys. Now I know size isn't everything, especially in football, because the greatest player of all time is only 5'7". But you need at least a little bit of physicality if you're gonna break down a low block like that. Turkey did come close. Mert Mulder's header somehow hit both the crossbar and the post without going in. On another day, that might have changed everything. But when your best chance comes from a freak bounce and a bit of luck, it usually points to a...
این جالب بود. اولین بار هم چیزی که تو میخوره به این بعد میخوره به این بغل.
header somehow hit both the cross...
چی داری یه بار دیگه؟
low block like that. Turkey did come close. Mert Mulder's header somehow hit both the
1 2 خدا وکیلی بد شانسی.
crossbar and the post without going in. On another day, that might have changed everything. But when your best chance comes from a freak bounce and a bit of luck, it usually points to a deeper problem. Great attacking systems consistently create high quality chances.
آقا من نمیدونم ساعت چند شبه ها، یعنی اینجا میبینی خمیازه میکشم کارت قرمز میگیرم روی صورت میکنم. نمیدونم تا چند شبه من دارم این ویدیو رو میگیرم. آقا لایک کنید، سابسکرایب هم بکنید، یادتون نره، دوباره یادآوری میکنم.
Turkey didn't. By the final whistle, they had spent 45 minutes playing against 10 men, dominated possession, and still failed to score. If you really want to understand how bad this World Cup has been for Turkish fans, just go and look at social media. The one good thing that Elon Musk has done on the X app is having the auto-translate feature. It's led to some golden tweets. After the loss to Paraguay, frustrations turned into full-blown anger. Fans were upset because they felt this team had far too much talent to go out like this. The biggest complaints focused on 2 things that I've already mentioned. The lack of a proper number 9 and Montella's inability to adapt during games. Fans couldn't understand how a team could dominate possession, play against 10 men for an entire half, and still look so completely toothless in front of goal. All foreplay no penetration. A common complaint was that Turkey had become obsessed with fluid attacking football while forgetting a simple reality. Somebody still has to be in the box to finish chances. But nobody was consistently occupying the center backs. As a result, Paraguay's defenders had one of the easiest jobs imaginable. The other major target, as I stated earlier,
همونطور که چند روز پیش گفتم ظاهرا از کمبود مهاجم نوک رنجی میبره. قشنگ مونتلا خودش دعوت نکرده یا بار فنی تیم ترکیه همینه. حالا اینو دیگه من چون زیاد اونقدر با دقت بازی ترکیه رو ندیدم نمیتونم نظر بدم، ولی همونطور که گفتم پس حتما بازیکنی نداشته که داخل باکس رو اشغال بکنه که تصمیم گرفتن شوت بزنن. نمیتونیم 100% بندازیم گردنشون که اینا تصمیمات بدی گرفتن که شروع کردن به شوت زدن. شاید به خاطر اینی که بازیکنی رو به جلو نداشتن که براش سانت کنن بزنه.
was Montella. Many supporters still appreciate what he did to get Turkey back to the World Cup, but many now feel he was badly exposed once the tournament started. Against Australia, Turkey were physically overwhelmed and struggled to create chances. Against Paraguay, the same kind of problem. They had all the possession, but couldn't break down a packed defense. In both situations, fans felt the same thing. Montella was just waiting for Arda Güler to pull something magical out of his ass or something. When the system isn't creating chances, the responsibility naturally falls on the stars. The problem is that even the most talented players struggle when they're constantly surrounded by defenders and forced to create miracles. Many fans believe Turkey has become far too dependent on moments of individual brilliance, rather than having collective attacking patterns. And when those moments don't arrive, the entire attack collapsed. Turkey's problems weren't just in the attack. The defense also deserves some scrutiny. Even before the World Cup, there were some warning signs. The team had been conceding too many goals in recent matches, and those small defensive mistakes became much more costly once the tournament began. At the World Cup, one lapse in concentration can end your entire campaign. That's exactly what happened. Against Australia, Turkey's midfield protection just wasn't strong enough. It was like a condom that has a hole in it. Whenever the Socceroos won the ball back, they attacked quickly through the middle. Too often the midfield pivot failed to track runners or close down space, leaving the center backs exposed. The Australians didn't create a ton of chances. They didn't need to. Every time Turkey lost their shape, Australia looked dangerous. The Paraguay game was even worse. Conceding after just 2 minutes in a must-win World Cup match is about as awful of a start as you can imagine. The goal came from a simple breakdown in communication. Paraguay moved the ball forward quickly, and Enciso found space between the lines, and his pass released Galarza for the opener. Just like that, Turkey's entire game plan was gone. Instead of controlling the match, they were chasing it for the next 88 minutes. Demiral and Abdulkarim Bardakci are talented defenders, but they were often left on an island. A good defensive structure isn't just about the back four, it's about the entire team working together, and too often, Turkey looked disconnected. The midfield and defense were operating as separate units. There was also a psychological side to this collapse. This wasn't just any Turkish team. For years, fans had been calling this group the next golden generation. Arda Güler, Kenan Yildiz. So many young stars were being talked about as the players who could finally bring Turkey back to the heights of 2002. That's a lot of pressure. And when things started going wrong, you could see the pressure building. It looked like a young team feeling the weight of the moment. One of the hardest things for any young team to learn is how to be calm when things aren't going your way. The best international sides don't panic. They stay patient, they trust their structure, and they wait for opportunities. Turkey never quite found that composure. As soon as adversity arrived, their confidence seemed to disappear with it, and their World Cup ended before it even really got started. For a team that arrived with so much excitement and so much talent, that was a difficult reality to accept. Now the big question is what comes next. Do they stick with Vincenzo Montella and trust him to learn from these mistakes? Or do they look for a manager with a more pragmatic approach? The good news is that the future of this team still remains very bright. Güler, Yildiz, and many others are still at the beginning of their careers. This generation has far too much talent to disappear after one disappointing tournament. But if they want to avoid another heartbreak like 2026, they'll need to become more adaptable, more disciplined, and more resilient when things don't go according to plan. Because talent can get you to a World Cup. What happens once you arrive depends on everything else. If you enjoyed this video,
اگر از این ویدیو خوشتون اومد همینطور که داشت میگفت ما رو به دوستاتون معرفی بکنید، شیر، لایک، سابسکرایب، هرچی فراموش نکنید. کامنتاتون رو میخونم، تو هر ثانیه از ویدیو که نظری در موردش داشتید حتما کامنت کنید. کامنتاتون رو میخونم، اگر بتونم جواب میدم با وایس، با متن، هرچی. با اعلام ساعت نمیدونم 3 یا 4 صبح، نمیدونم چند صبح، ازتون خداحافظی میکنم. ما رو دنبال بکنید. خدا نگهدار.